right, so here is our first one.
Yes. So we are excited to share Mary's resume. Mary was awesome enough to provide us with her resume for us to deconstruct. And please ask questions while we're going through this. We want to be able to provide you with as much um, updates, questions, Q&A. We want it to be interactive, right, Marissa?
Absolutely. And Mary's looking to move into leadership roles. I believe this is the leadership resume. So we're looking for a specific kind of role.
Right. And that's the first thing. So the first thing that I share with all professionals when they're looking to bring in, when they're looking to update their resumes, my number one question or number one request before I do anything else, before we even look at the resume, if this was a complete blank page, the first question I ask a person is, what role are you looking to move into? What's next for you in your career? And the reason why I ask that is because people tend to look at resumes as they look backwards. So they're looking at, hey, these are the things that I've done in my career. And I want you, and when you're thinking about creating a resume, is to look forward. So think about what your next role is going to be, the types of positions that you're applying for, because these roles that you're applying for may not necessarily be what you've been doing in the past. So, I mean, this is an executive one. So we're going to dive into this one, and Marissa is going to take on the next one. However, when you're thinking about creating a resume, even if you're a junior person and you don't have any cybersecurity experience at all, if you're an intern, whatever it is that you're, however, if you're looking to break into the field, um, my recommendation is to, at all levels, go and find 2 to 3 job descriptions of companies of jobs that you want. So if you're an executive or if you're moving into an executive role, you're going to be looking at, the director positions, if even potentially manager. If you're going from like a technical expert and try to move into management, you're going to be looking at security manager roles. You're going to be looking at somebody like Mary is going to be looking at director level roles. She's going to be looking at she's a senior architect now. She may look at a senior architect in a bigger company. That might be, the next step up. So getting like more exposure, or potentially principal architect, or, even like a CISO. So all of these different types of companies that she's looking to get into, she would go out, pull a couple of job descriptions, and from those job descriptions, really take a look at what she sees that is consistent in those job descriptions. So, for example, step one, Mary is going to go out. She's going to look at principal architects. She's going to look at different roles, to step into leadership. So, director of security, principal architects. What do those job descriptions say in them? What are the requirements that they're asking for? So, not from a technical level, because she likely has the expertise. However, what are they asking for a person to have accomplished? What are they asking for? What are the results going to be from this person when the job is over? So those are the types of things that you want to be putting in your resume to show these are the types of accomplishments that I've had in the past, and this is what's going to make me successful in this role in the future. So that's why I say take a look. One of the things that I used to do at used to have this program called Resume in Reverse, and it purely was building a resume based on job descriptions, because a job description is pretty much telling you a glimpse, giving you a glimpse into what life hopefully is like in that new company, what that new role is like. So it's purely, it's kind of like the shortcut when you think about hacking into hacking your resume. This is the way to do it. So I would be asking Mary, hey, Mary, go look and pull me these job descriptions. So some of the things that come up very, very often when it comes to leadership roles, very, very heavy on accomplishments. So, what have you done? What have you done in your prior role that's going to make me want to bring you and hire you into a new role? That could be in your current job. It could be in, like in Mary's case, CEO, founding board member of the Women's Society of Cyberjutsu. So her leadership skills. So it's, as you all know, when it gets to a leadership level, it's more than just the technical expertise, it's the leadership expertise as well. So even if Mary is an individual contributor as a senior cybersecurity architect in her current role, she is likely doing things like managing across, managing up. So she has to manage her leaders that may not know technically what the intricacies of her day to day. She may have to put together a budget. She may have to, um, build relationships with her peers in other departments, build relationships with other VPs and other people above her in other departments. So really managing across, managing without authority, managing up, all of these types of things should be showcased in Mary's resume. And I see right now she has here designs and engineers. So she's talking about the technical things in the resume, but not really talking about, she says cross-departmental engineering teams, but not really delving into what am I doing from a cross-departmental perspective across the company. And I know Mary in this role is interacting with legal, interacting with, these various departments. That's the kind of information that you want to put into a resume from an executive perspective. Another thing Merissa did is Merissa moved down. I definitely want to highlight this. And Merissa, you could chime in here too. Merissa, we took the resume and we just jumped immediately to the work experience section. So above this, there's certifications. And above that, so Marissa's scrolling up right now, above that is like professional overview, leadership and managerial competencies. There's a ton of information that Marissa's highlighting right now that typically recruiters skim or don't read it all. We jump immediately into the work experience. So we, that we, and Merissa, correct me if I'm wrong, because this is how I was trained years and years ago, is that blurb up top, it's nice. You want to have an overview or an executive summary or something. What would make this one really stand out is highlighting a couple of accomplishments, specifically with numerical, if we could quantify the data. So Mary is awarded, award-winning cyber community technical leader and the award. So highlighting or bolding out that she was awarded the ISC Squared Inaugural Diversity Award. Also highlighting a couple other things. Everything else in here, I would likely pull out, overseeing staffing. How much staffing? 10 people, 50 people, 75 people, the finances, what specifically was done. So Mary, when you look at, there's large teams to accomplish, your second sentence brings over 10 years of leadership and technical experience in securing information systems. And then saying you're leading a staff, how many staff? You're leading, small and large teams, led from 5 to 75 people, 5 to 50 people. You want to quantify that, because small for some company could be 100 people. If you're in the military or something, a small team could be really small. Really big. And that makes a difference. A small team in a startup could be 2 people, you and somebody else. So you definitely want to highlight, hey, these are the things that I'm bringing to the table, so that when, the CIO of IBM sees Mary's resume, he's like, wow, or she's like, wow, these are the things that Mary has done. So highlighting all of the different, and quantifying the staffing, quantifying the finances. So Mary, you have here, how to effectively overseeing staffing, finances, communication. So when you say overseeing, what specifically have you done inside of the finance piece? Is it, we have a budget of $150,000. So you have a budget of, and this could be the finances in the Women's Society of Cyberjutsu, or it could be the finances in your current organization, this Las Vegas casino. So if you have the casino information, you want to put managing a budget of $4 million, 12 million, 75 million, whatever the number is. You also want to put the same numbers down in the founding board member. We'll get to that in a second. But up here, you really want to showcase, okay, these numbers, the people can see, oh wow, she managed 12 people, she's dealt with budgets of 45 million. This is a woman that I can bring in that understands what's going on. It's aligned to what we have going on. So if it's a company that's $100 million company, you manage a budget of 45 million, there's parallels there. They feel comfortable. If you manage a budget of 150,000, they might be like, I don't know if this is the right person for the team. So these are the things that people tend to look at when they're looking at resumes. So I'm just going to go down the list. So Mary talks about her communication skills. So communicating and reporting for an organization of volunteers. Again, how many volunteers, how much communication in terms of the number of, in the society, the Women's Society of Cyberjutsu, how often do you have meetings? How big are these meetings? Are they virtual or are they in person? So all of those details around what exactly you're doing and what you spearheaded is very, very important. So as we scroll down and go down some more, again, technical competency, so leadership and managerial competencies. So you talk about the 7-year-old cybersecurity nonprofit with 2,500 paid members. So this is perfect. So this kind of information, the 7-year-old cybersecurity nonprofit composed of over 2,500 paid members, all of that should be bolded. So you want to bold that out so people can, I have to kind of read and dig in to see that that's there. I want that, especially the numbers, bolded. 5,000 supporters, bolded. Mary, I know for a fact that you do fundraising. That's huge. That should be in here. How much money has been raised? What kind of information, what step by step, what were you doing to get to that point? And what were the accomplishments? So I raised $250,000 for 25 girls to be a part of this program. All things like that you want to highlight in the resume. And then there's the technical competency. So obviously, yes, in a security organization, you definitely want to show your certifications, which are great, and the technical competencies. So going through and walking through and saying, these are the technical competencies that I have, that's great. But I definitely want you to think about the executive summary and then taking some of those things, some of those highlights from the executive summary and putting them in the quote body of the resume, which is where Merissa had moved us down to. So when you get to the work experience part, and this is, Merissa will jump into the more junior one. We're talking about the more executive level one or the senior one, the meat and potatoes of your resume. This is where 90% of recruiters and most hiring managers are going to jump to. They don't even typically, Merissa, correct me, please, any minute. they don't look at the top, right? They jump right in.
I certainly do. I look at this overview, but what I'm looking for it to do is to give me a snapshot into something that's going to set this candidate apart from another candidate. So, if Mary were to lead with leading Women's Society of Cyberjutsu, that's not something I'm going to find on everyone else's resume, because all of these things, like you said, they should be quantified achievements that are going to be relevant to the scale of the team or department that they're going to manage in the role that I'm searching to fill. So these should certainly be achievements that are included in how they've executed on the role, right? These seem a bit more like responsibilities. So this is what you're doing on a day to day, but what have you achieved as a result of it? You oversaw the department, but we're looking for, as a result of that, you achieved what? Was the team X percentage more effective? And if so, in what? If you were helping them just, define and assemble security components on security standards. So if you're helping be more compliant, from what percentage compliant to, another percentage, how do you quantify that? Especially if you're looking to go down, let's say, a security director, ISO, CISO role, then you're going to be presenting and possibly reporting to the board. And the figures that are going to stand out to them are going to be impact driven, usually to the bottom line. So making your achievements translate to money translate to risk, which is then going to get your department more funding. And like what you said, that was a great point around the fundraising for Women's Society of Cyberjutsu. You know, can you show that you are able to get money for your team, for your stakeholders? Because board members are going to love to hear that. Yes, it's their job to raise money, but even better if you've got someone front facing in the excuse me, in the community that can go out and help make your job easier by raising more funds and being public facing. So I think that was a really great point. So not just how much money you raised, but how did you raise it? What events were most successful and why? And I know we're not talking about interviews, but in going into an interview, being able to talk about some of the things that didn't work. So you're bringing your lessons learned and sharing them with, you know, your potential stakeholder, your potential new boss, and telling them, oh, well, at least I know that I don't have to try this idea because I already have the data that it would not be successful.
Right, right. Merissa made some really valid points. So going down into, as we get down, further into the work experience. So the most important work experience is your most recent. So that's just overall. If you have 20 years of experience, people are really focused on the last 5 or so years. Technology changes so fast. Everything changes so fast. Unless you're bringing up a role that you did years ago and you're applying to that, maybe highlighting something like that, like something from 2010 that you really want to showcase. Otherwise, the very first, Merissa, scroll up a little bit again, back to the first page. That first page is really the key. And you want to put as much as you can into the first page of your resume for an executive. So so back to where we are with work experience and the cybersecurity, senior cybersecurity architect, really highlighting, Mary, these 3 bullets probably could be 6 bullets. You know, they could be, and each section doesn't have to have the same amount of bullets. Sometimes people have been told like it has to be equal and it has to be even. That's not the case. Your most recent experience is the one that's the most relevant, hopefully, to getting you to your next role. And that's the one you want to flesh out the most. So to Marissa's point about like some of these things currently being more responsibilities than deliverables and accountabilities, and your results, you really want to highlight how many people, if you're managing a team, how many. If you were the first security architect, put that in. If you built things from scratch, you want to put that in. If whatever your accomplishments are, you want to put them in there. Anything leadership related, you want to add that in as well. So all of the things that you are, think like you're hiring someone. And that's always, it's harder to do when you're lower down, when you're, early in your career. But as you get more seasoned, it's like, think about the things that you would be looking to bring in a person that you want to have accomplished. And I think in Mary's case, it's super easy to do that because you're the CEO of Women's Society of Cyberjutsu. So even though you're not, you may be the CEO of Mary Inc., the CEO of Women's Society of Cyberjutsu, you have a team, you have team members, you understand what it's like to have 6 or 7 or 8 or 9, the board members. It's important for you to you have committees, you understand what it is to say, okay, I want this result out of the committee. This is what I want. If Marissa's on the board, this is what Marissa, at the end of a year, this is what Marissa would have accomplished. So think about that. Think about that when you're creating the resume. What are the accomplishments that you had? And make sure that that is highlighted. And when I say highlighted, meaning you can bold certain words in your resume so they stand out. If you were the first architect, or you're the only architect, or you built something from scratch, highlight it, bold out those words, bold out $4 million budget, bold manages 10 people, oversee whatever you're doing, the accomplishment, bold it, because it draws our attention, it draws recruiters' attention to the resume, and it draws hiring managers' attention to that work experience. And the meat and potatoes of the resume is the work experience. So if you whatever you're doing, whatever you highlight at the top, you can duplicate it in the work experience. Don't feel like, oh, I put it at the top, I don't want to put it in. I put it in the executive summary, which is what Mary, yours should say executive summary up top. I put it in the executive summary. I don't want to duplicate it. You can duplicate it, put it in there. Um, and then again, going down a few layers. So the CEO, founding board member of the Women's Society of Cyberjutsu, in my opinion, I would move this and create like another section of leadership slash community service slash like volunteer efforts, things like that. And I would make this, I would bold this and build this out and put that in that section. So people realize, so you're going to highlight it in your executive summary, that's what you do. And then you're going to bring it down into like a volunteer section. So people say, oh, this woman is the CEO of, the Women's Society of Cyberjutsu. I also want people to be aware that at this level in particular, people are jumping all over your LinkedIn profile. So don't feel that you have to, that your resume, when your resume is set up a certain way, and in some cases, and I've dealt with this, the LinkedIn profile is the resume. So, sometimes I have people who they don't have resumes anymore. Like, go to my LinkedIn, it has enough. And if it's enough meat on it, that's enough for a leader and a manager to jump in and want to interview people. And I've had many, many, many people interview at the director level, the CISO level, and the senior architect level, things like that, from a LinkedIn profile. So do I say only have, obviously we all prefer a resume to be in conjunction with the LinkedIn profile, but realize that they're looking at your LinkedIn profile. And when they look at your LinkedIn profile, information as well as what it is you're saying and doing and communicating on LinkedIn. So the comments that you make, the blogs that are put out there, everything else, because even though it's your own words and stuff and it's not quote unquote representative of your company, you are representing, your this is your face, this is who you are. Are you truly involved in the community? Are you truly, what are you doing? Mary, I don't have to ask you this because you're running this show here. But for other people, for other executives, showcase what it is you're doing. Put out there that you are you're the diversity chair, or you're doing, you're working with students and colleges, whatever it is, whatever community service that you're doing, you absolutely want to highlight it in LinkedIn or in like a volunteer section. You see how LinkedIn has the LinkedIn typically has that section up top, which is your experience, and the section down below, which is your volunteer and everything else. So I would move, if I were, advising Mary, I would move the CEO piece, I would move it down and create a completely separate section.
I would also highlight the fact that it's a nonprofit, and that might even be something that you want to include in the executive summary. So the kinds of companies you worked for. I know when I was looking for CISOs in the past, the first thing I want to know is, has this person been a CISO to a public company or a private company? Because the funding and the way business operates are totally different. If you've got experience running a nonprofit, that's a whole different side of the business, but it is also non-threatening to a business, meaning there's no conflict of interest seeing that there's a CEO title on your resume. Because oftentimes when we see that, we're thinking, oh, could they potentially take our clients? Could they take our customers? So there's a little bit of a risk to the business if they hire someone who's really passionate about what they're doing, but they run a for-profit business. So this is a nonprofit. Definitely highlight that. So it's community based, it's organized with volunteers. So you're not going to be looking to take away your potential employer's people or, steal trade secrets. Like all of those things are what we're looking at in security, right? So definitely highlight that.
Such a valid point. So valid, Marissa. I didn't even think about it from that perspective, but you're absolutely right. To make sure that that's highlighted and it shows, and again, that's why I would move it down to a volunteer section, so they kind of know this is not your day job. This is not a second day job. In addition, so Mary, another thing, what I would do in this case, you have the senior cybersecurity architect and the vulnerability management engineer and pen tester role were all at the same company. I would combine those together and make them all one. So it looks like, well, at first glance, it looks like you've been at two companies, when in actuality, you've only been at one. So from December 2016, so your top work experience should be senior cybersecurity architect. And I would change that from December 2016 to present. And then underneath, I would put, what your accomplishments were as an architect, and then what your accomplishments were as a vulnerability management engineer and pen tester. So two things you do with that. You show longevity in your career. You show that you've been working at one place since 2016 to 2020, which is huge. Managers, even though we know that the average time people spend in companies is about 2.5 to 3 years, if you have longevity in a place and they saw that clearly you've been moving either up or laterally, and going from a vulnerability management engineer and a pen tester into a security architect, that's a move up. So it shows that you were promoted. It just shows positivity that you have been there for a long time. You've been accomplishing your goals. Your manager has moved you up to a different role, or you were able to take the opportunity somewhere else. It shows your longevity, and it shows that you're a stick with it person. You're not just somebody that after 2 minutes, that moves. So a question is coming in about students. What should they put? I'll answer that in 1 second. So for Mary's case, what we're going to do is blend those two, make everything it stands 2016 to present. You can keep as many bullets. Again, we don't have to, it can be 6 bullets, it can be 10 bullets. It just needs to show that we're from 2016 to the present. And then the CEO stuff is going to move down. And that shows your longevity. I love that we're doing this. We're truly reconstructing the resume. And I'm going to make sure we get through Mary so that we can get to the next one. So you guys can see the more senior and the more junior resume. So we have that, and then we would flesh this out. Go ahead, Merissa.
I would take out the company name just because you already know what that
Correct.
company is.
Yep.
So
And you don't even need to put, I personally wouldn't even need for you to put 2 different dates. I would remove all those dates.
So I like the dates from an HR perspective because it shows me her career progression and how long it took her to achieve all of those things. Because if I know that the 30, 60, 90-day goals are whatever they're going to be, then I can say, well, she's got a track record of doing this in the past. So here's some data to support, why she should be able to do this again when she's telling you the story about her achievements.
So for me, and this is where you get the various perspectives. So for me, to me, at first glance, like I think that I could get that information out of an interview, but at first glance, when I'm looking at a resume down the right, and when managers are quickly looking at things down the right, even though we removed everything, it to them is like, okay, what is this? 16 to 18 now, 18 to present, like they're jumping. So that's why I personally tell people to remove the date. So that's just me. But I 100% agree with you. I just think that would come out in the interview. So that's what we would do, initially, and then we're going to move down and go into Mary's other experience. So again, this is all career progression. So network security specialist and incident responder. That looks great. The dates are good. What she has here is good. But again, accomplishments and bolding things. So if, for example, Mary, you developed and provided high-level strategies to mitigate. So her first sentence under network security specialist, where she was at Department of Homeland Security, high-level strategies to mitigate, I would probably potentially highlight that and bold it, the high-level strategies, and then even potentially put in what high-level strategies they may have been. High-level strategies including, and maybe 1 or 2 things, so that they know, these are the types of strategies that she put in place or that she recommended. So when we talk about bolding something, that's what I would put. So then
And I would even caveat, so let's say that this was some confidential work where you can't really be too specific.
Hmm.
Even if you mention what those strategies were relevant to, if they were defensive security operations, if it was red teaming, if it was improving the infrastructure. So just briefly give insight to what the strategy was relevant to. So even if it is classified what that strategy was, at least the reader knows somewhat what this why this means something enough to put it on the resume and call it out.
Hmm. Absolutely, 100%. Especially because Merissa, I mean, I deal in commercial and in government. Marissa is heavily deep into
Yeah,
government.
lots of bad customers.
A lot of defense, a lot of security, like, Department of Homeland Security type customers with, high clearances, very, very, very secret, top secret stuff. So she fully understands this. I deal in both worlds. I do some of the stuff that Marissa's doing, but I also deal in the commercial space as well. So, Marissa's is spot on when it comes to that information. So Marissa, let's scroll down a little bit more because we want to get to the next person before the time is up. The rest of the information here looks pretty good. As I said, the further away you get, like stuff from 2009, I love that Mary only has like one bullet because she doesn't need any more. Again, these last couple roles, like one bullet each, to really be able to showcase what you've been doing in the past 5 years. So whatever that first page and that first the first page is so key. That's what people tend to dig into the most relevant and the most recent experience. And I even, quite frankly, that first bullet that you write under your experience is key, because, and another trick is that first bullet from a manager's perspective and a recruiter's perspective is the crux of what you have done. So if you are thinking about your life or just anything in general, the top of mind, the things that you're doing the most are typically going to be at the top. So that very first bullet is a very, very important bullet. And as you all have likely heard over and over, people skim resumes. They don't even look at them. If they're going into it, reading them, if you're applying to a role and it's going into an applicant tracking system, the applicant tracking system is doing the scanning and the reading, not even the recruiter. Hence why sometimes, especially with some of the bigger larger organizations, you may not get a call back, even though you feel that you are the perfect fit. Your resume is not aligning to that job description, and hence you're kind of scored lower than someone else who very well could not have the right experience, but their resume aligns. So there's some questions coming in. So we want to pause, take some of these questions, and then jump into the next resume.
Okay.
So a couple questions. So students had some questions. They wanted to know what should they put in the experience section, and I believe the experience section. So from the experience, I would always, with students, you want to share your area of self-directed project and student projects. So if you're a student and you're looking for an internship or your first job, hopefully you're doing, there's coursework, there's theory, and then there's projects. The projects that you're most excited about. So if you were excited about your pen test project, if you're excited about, whatever project you've done, the tools that you've used, if you use Wireshark, if you use, whatever it is that you've used, you literally want to take those bullets and write them out. A quickie way to do that, a really easy way to do it, is go to your course curriculum, look at what you should accomplish at the end of your course, swipe it, replace it, stick it in your resume, and then actually highlight what you did. So if your course curriculum says at the end of this course, you should be able to, and there's a list of things that you should be able to do, swipe that, put it into the bullets, and say, this is what I did. But you really, don't lie. You want to showcase what you did, and you want to highlight what you did. But you definitely want to show that, and you want to make that your experience. So I've worked with students over the years, tons of students, and students, I love to work with students and interns, because for example, you could be working a part-time job at like Target or Walmart or something, and then on your resume it says experience Walmart customer service. These people don't care. This is not what you want to highlight. We appreciate the fact that you are working to put yourself through school and that you are, you're working in society, but that's not the work that they're looking for. They're looking for your cybersecurity education, knowledge, projects, self-directed projects, anything you have on GitHub, if you have been doing work and you're blogging about it, your home lab experience. Those are the kinds of things that managers want to see, and managers get very, very impressed with. If you downloaded the free version of Splunk and like you have done, you were able to implement it and you're using these tools, those are the things that you put in a project section. It doesn't have to be a quote experience. You put it in projects, and that's what's going to pique someone's interest. Like, whoa, what's this person's doing? This person's using Splunk. They're using Wireshark. Like, they know the tools. They've been in this stuff. That's the type of person that I want to have a conversation with. Merissa, you want to jump in?
Yeah, I would also add, so if you're a student and you're applying for jobs, then the jobs that you're going to be looking for are going to be job bullets that say you need 0 to 1 or 2 years of experience, or it is specifically saying entry level, or it's saying junior, or it's saying the word, security analyst level 1 in the job posting. So they're not expecting you to have a ton of experience, because the bar is that they're looking for students. The expectation is that they're going to train you. Now, if you're applying for, let's say, an analyst level 3, a senior security engineer, then that's when you run into, I'm not sure how to quantify my experience, because it doesn't line up and you're not going to be qualified or experienced enough for that role. And those are the roles where they're looking for you to come in, kind of hit the ground running. And your 30, 60, 90 is really 0 to 30 days. So you're going to want to really take into account the things that you are doing, make sure that they're relevant to the jobs you're applying for. And if you have any involvement in security clubs, if you've organized a club, if you've organized a meeting, if you've gone to an event, if you competed in CTFs, even if you didn't place, that's fine. Just list some of the things that you have done. If you've got some GitHub projects, please list them. If you have contributed to some open source projects, please list those as well, because anything that you can do to show the hiring manager that there is data that can show this is what my work product looks like if you give me a chance to be selected over someone else, because those entry level positions are highly competitive. And if you're recareering, meaning you have a lot of experience, let's say 20 years in, being a librarian or an operations manager, and now you're trying to transition into being a pen tester, then none of those previous years of experience are going to apply to the technical piece, but you can still list out the jobs that you've had, even though you're not highlighting the summaries or responsibilities, just to show that you're a seasoned professional, you know how to carry yourself in a workplace, but you have to be ready to start over from the ground floor when you're making a transition to a new career. And just kind of set yourself up mentally to say, this is what I'm going to do. And know that if you do well, security is an industry where you can have some good wins and move up pretty quickly. And after a year or two somewhere, you could be making 6 figures somewhere else. So, know that it's kind of a concession you make at the front end, but long term, you're going to get to where you want to be.
Awesome points, especially about the student stuff. Capture the flag. I want to give an example. I work with a company. They specifically looked for people who were participating in CTFs. They didn't care about the experience. They didn't care about anything else. They wanted people who participated in these particular CTFs. And we made hires based on not experience, nothing to do with formal experience, but only to do with CTF participation. And in some cases, if they won, because some of the roles you had to be more seasoned, and some of the roles more junior. But Merissa is 100% correct in terms of everything she said around the clubs, around your CTS, anything else that you're doing that's outside of school. If you're a student, put that on there. There's some more questions. So someone asked, what is the name of my book? The name of the book is Magnetic Hiring. The website is magnetichiring.com/book, and you can get a free download of the book. And it shares a lot of secrets for cybersecurity recruiting and cybersecurity HR related, kind of like what we look at from an HR perspective about cybersecurity professionals. If we made a career change to cybersecurity, how many previous years of non-tech or cybersecurity experience should we include, and how far back should our resumes go? Additionally, someone asked about 1-page or 2-page resumes. 1 page if you're a student. If you have less than 5 years, 1 page. I had a 1-page resume. I have since almost 20 years experience, and up until 10 years, it was more or less 1 page. You can fit it in, work on the margins, work on the font doesn't need to be huge. Your name doesn't need to take up the whole. I see some people and it cracks me up. Their name takes the whole top of the resume. We know your name. You're special. It does not need to take over that whole top. 10-point fonts, 1/2 inches around the sides, and keep it very, very clean to be able to write as much information as possible, and try to keep it to 1 page for a student for sure, 2 pages for executives and professionals. And Merissa has the checklist up. I'm going to answer go through the rest of these questions and then jump into the checklist. So would we show the dates if it was a short-term position with a company? Would it hurt you on first glance? If you were at a company for like 6 months, then don't do month and year. Just do years across your whole entire resume. So if you were at somewhere in 2018 and it was from like January to June, put 2016. And then let us ask the question. You want to get through the hump. So let us ask, okay, how many months in 2016? Because technically it could be all of 2016, but we wouldn't know that. However, I wouldn't put, I would keep it consistent across the whole entire resume. So if other experience said, June 2016 to, July of 2019, I would write 2016 and 2019 for those, and prior to that, 2013 to 2015, whatever it is, you just want to keep it consistent and not put the months in. Is it good or bad?
I would also say that recruiters are having to change the way they search and the way they evaluate candidates, right, as our hiring managers and organizations. Because with the emergence of the gig economy a few years ago, contracting is a huge part of the contingent workforce. So contractors, they're the people who really are coming into a totally unknown situation, coming in and having to make an impact right away. So when I'm looking at those dates, it's not necessarily a disqualifier if you've only been somewhere 6 months. Maybe you've changed jobs every 6 months because you're that good and you can. And that's someone that's going to be a high performer. That's someone we want on our team. So I think it's all about making sure that it fits in with your story. If the opportunity was just so good that you had to take that other opportunity and leave the current employer, or if it was a specific project that you were supposed to do in 12 months and you're able to put enough automation in that you automated yourself out of a job in 6 months, that's actually a good thing. Those are things that we want to hear. And as long as you can explain how you did that, then those are good things for at least me in the HRC.
Yeah. Another question came through. Do you think companies care about where you graduated from or grad school, or even if you have a grad school degree? And because the person is wondering about Western Governors University versus Stan's Masters in Cybersecurity for future management. Typically, from my experience, it has not been a big, question of where you graduated from. Some schools just have the curriculum and the technical aspect of the school tend to yield like a certain level or caliber of candidate, and the companies that really are looking for like this certain level of expertise will want that. But overall, I haven't seen much, no manager says to me, I want someone from Western Governors program or such and such as program. Like, it's very, very rare that comes across. And in addition, having a grad school degree I would do it for personal preference. It typically is needed when you start getting into management. So she did ask if she's future management role. It's a lot of times they ask for it to be preferred. when you're getting up into like, the CISO, the director level and stuff like that, it's definitely what most of the leaders have. So you would want to have that laid out. I know we only have like 1 minute. So Merissa, you want to finish up with this checklist and
Sure. Yeah, I just wanted to share this checklist with everyone so that you have something to go by when you're looking at putting a resume together for a specific role. And of course, there are a lot more bullets that we can put customized to each person. But I think one thing that I didn't add that I would really like to add is what is your story, right? So, your summary, or if it's an executive summary or it's a student summary, whatever it is, tell me, show me who you are, and then let the rest of the resume be the business case to kind of support how you've done other things well in the past, whether it's going to a class and getting great grades or presenting to a board and getting some budget for the security team. So, whatever your wins are, make sure that you highlight them. And if you're active in the community, I think that is really key because it shows that you're not just here for a check, you care about security, and you're going to make sure that you do everything you can to make sure that overall the business's security operations are effective. And
awesome.
here's a tool that Renee mentioned. So this was something I learned from Renee. So I'll let you take it away for JobScan.
Yep. So for that last tool, and I know we're over time, there is a website called jobscan.co. It is awesome. You can put your resume in and you can put the job description in, and it pretty much tells you what score you would rank if your resume was going up against this job in an applicant tracking system. So when you think about your resume going in a black hole, if you put it in here, it kind of tells you if it's going to be in the black hole or if it's going to get, highlighted to the top. So it's an excellent resource, jobscan.co.
Yep. And then if you'd like to stay in touch with us, feel free to connect.
Yep. And one last question, do either of us provide paid resume review services? I do not anymore. Merissa, do you?
Well, good news is you don't have to pay me. I'll do it for free.
Well, there you go. Reach out to Merissa. That is awesome. So, so thank you to Cyberjutsu for this amazing time, and we are here to help. And you can reach out to us on LinkedIn. Definitely join my podcast called Breaking into Cybersecurity, and we have a leadership series. And we look forward to connecting with all of you in the future.
Yeah.